Guys, this is the original Rudegal, and for this video, I guess I wanted to do a little bit of a story time. The story time will be quick and simple, but for this story time, I want to... Is that really a spider inside? Please let that be a spider outside my... Great. There's a spider outside my window. But anyway, for this story time, I guess the story time will be the time that I died. Oh no, I didn't die. The time I was chased by Freddy Krueger. I know it's going to seem crazy. It's going to seem weird. You probably think I'm loca, but no, it's not. I'm not loca. I'm not weird. This story time, actually, when I was chased by Freddy Krueger, this actually happened when I was about 13 years old. I was in love with horror movies. I think I related more to horror movies because at the time, and there would be a different story time, but I had difficulty reading. I had difficulty reading because growing up, I was speaking predominantly Spanish and English at the same time. And I guess my Spanish surpassed my mother's Spanish because if you've watched any of my other videos, and I am not biracial, I'm multiracial, and my father is Puerto Rican and Mexican, and my mother and those that watch me decided to speak to me in Spanish when I was growing up. So I was more fluent in Spanish till about, I think they said about 4 or 5, and then after that it was like stop speaking Spanish, because there was nobody else in the household that was speaking Spanish. So it was kind of hard for them to understand, you know, where I was coming from and what I was doing. So anyway, back to story time. So because of that, my reading was a little off, and I found myself, I always enjoyed martial art movies and horror movies. And my favorite horror movie or horror genre at the time was, I love werewolf movies, so I used to watch American Werewolf in London. That scared me, but I loved it. And then I went from the supernatural, and I call that supernatural because, of course, if you watch the first Nightmare on Elm Street, you wouldn't really notice that Freddy was supernatural until about like the second movie. And for me, I guess I was oblivious to that. So anyway, back to the story. I was sleeping. I used to be a vivid sleeper, and I remember the dream started off that I was we were in England, and I was walking to my friend's house at night. And usually in England, if you don't know, or especially in London, during the winter months or the fall months, it gets darker quicker. So because it got darker quicker, it had to be about maybe 6:30 in the evening, and I was walking to my friend Lisa and Julie's house. And when I walked to Lisa and Julie's house, I opened up their door of their house, and their house was just like a one-level, like ranch style home. And when I opened up, like I said, their house is a one-story ranch style home. When I opened up the door, I swear the inside of the house looked like, yes, and for those 80s babies, you may know what I'm talking about, Charles in Charge set. So when you walked in, to the right was a staircase that led up to the second floor, and then you had the living room, you know, sunken living room and everything else. So when I opened up the door, and I remember it so vividly, I remember Prince's Kiss was playing. And I was kind of worried, like, why is Prince's Kiss playing? And then I called for Lisa and Julie, and they came out. And Lisa and Julie at the time had to be about 10 and 11. So they came out, and they were like stone faced, and they were just looking at me. And all of a sudden, from where the music was to my right hand side upstairs, I hear, "Honey, I'm home." And when I looked up, it was Freddy Krueger with the hat, nails, sweater, and everything. And all I heard is ching, and he went and he did his hands like this, and I saw the blades, and I was like, oh shit. So I turned around, and I know I must be a terrible friend. I turned around and I said, we gotta go. And I started running out the house. And then I looked over my shoulder, and I noticed Julie and Lisa aren't following me. But who is following me is Freddy Krueger. So I'm running all the way down, and I get to my house. And as I'm getting to my house, Freddy is like right over my shoulder, and he lunges at me, and I slam the door. And I was expecting his nails to go through the door, but I didn't hear his nails go through the door. I didn't even hear a thud. I locked the door. No, I shut the door. And when I looked at my house, I saw my mother and my brother, and they were standing at the bottom of our stairs. Now, our house was a duplex. It was one of those military housing like duplexes that was 2 stories tall. So the staircase was to the right, and my mother and my brother were standing at the bottom of the staircase. And I remember in my dream, I'm like, Carlos, help me shut the door. And my brother's like, hold it. And then my mother's saying in chorus, hold it. So I'm looking here, and I'm struggling with this door. Like I said, I'm only like 12, 13. I'm holding this door, and they're not helping me. So all of a sudden, the door had a mighty push, and I left my family. I ran up the stairs to my room and shut the door. And as I'm shutting the door, my door didn't budge open. So I was like, good, I'm safe. And then I laid on my bed because I was tired. As I laid on my bed, all of a sudden, like, Johnny, here comes Johnny. And if y'all know that tag phrase, that's from not only the night show, Late Night with I think it's Johnny Carson, but also The Shining. Jack Nicklaus used that when he busted through the door to get his wife with the hatchet or with the axe. So as he said, here comes Johnny, all of a sudden I see his nails come up, like he's lifting me. I'm levitated. I see his nails come up, and then he stabs me. He was about to stab me in the abdomen. And the only thing I could remember is, like, growing up with my mother, it was very, very spiritual. And she always told me if ever I needed anything, just call on Jesus. So as he's trying to stab me with his razors, before it ever hits me, I said, oh, Jesus, please help. And as I said that, I fell on my bed, and he disappeared. So I was shook. In the dream, I was shook. So within the dream, I woke up the next day, and we had a school field trip. It was a junior high field trip. And at the time, I had 2 best friends, Rachel Regadio and Rachel Bourne. And in my dream, I was sitting on the bus with both of them, and I was telling them about my dream. My encounter with Freddy Krueger. And as I'm on the bus telling them, because the bus is filled with every other, I think, 8th grader at the time, and we're going on this field trip. As I'm telling them about the dream, all of a sudden it sounded like we were in a bowling alley. So I'm still talking. We're talking about the dream and everything. They're thinking, oh, it's crazy and everything else, because in real life, they always watch horror movies with me. So we're like bonding over this horror movie nightmare experience. Then all of a sudden, as the bowling alley sound got louder, I was sitting along the aisle seat. So I look over my left shoulder, and I look in the aisle, and all of a sudden I see heads rolling down the aisle. Now it's funny because we're sitting in the middle of the bus. We're not in the back, and we're not in the front. We're in the middle. And I remember we're sitting in the right-hand side. So as we're watching heads roll down, severed heads roll down the aisle of seniors and people that were on our bus, we all unanimously looked over I don't know if they looked over their left shoulder, but I looked over my left shoulder. And all you see is Freddy Krueger going like this, with his nails cutting off heads, severing heads like heads of cabbage. So I don't know how, but one of the Rachels had a Bible in her backpack in my dream. And as we saw these severed heads rolling down the aisle, all we knew was to read anything out of the Bible. And as he was walking down the aisle, cutting off people, severing their heads with his blades, he got to us, and we had because we were fighting over what we're supposed to read in the Bible. We know we're supposed to read something, but what are we supposed to read in the Bible? What kind of gospel? That's our mind. So I remember me and Rachel just bust out in the beginning. So that we read the story of creation. So we're like, in the beginning, God created, and then all of a sudden, Freddy Krueger disappeared. Now, The third dream, because I know I had 3 dreams altogether. The third dream, even to this day, I cannot remember the third dream, but I know I had a third dream in regards to Freddy Krueger. And y'all, comment down below and tell me what movie, especially if you're a horror movie buff, what horror movie had the folklore, the myth that if you remembered your third dream, I guess it's if you remember your third dream, you would die because you remember the third dream. Because I know Freddy Krueger, if you know Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street folklore, it is if you die in your dream, you die in real life. Well, we didn't die in any of our dreams, and we didn't even get injured in any of our dreams, okay? Or I didn't. But ever since then, like I said, this has been, I've had the dream over 27 years ago. Yep, tell them my age, 28 years ago. And I still, to this day, I remember everything else vividly. I cannot remember that third dream, and I know I had a third dream. So, again, that was the time that I got chased, or I got, I got chased, or almost got killed by Freddy Krueger. So, if you like this story time, or you want to hear more crazy story times and vivid dreams, or anything else, please make sure you like, share. If you're new to the Rudegal fam, yes fam, I will be doing more not tutorials, makeup inspired looks, you know, and I do that because honestly, I find my favorite canvas is my face. I can be very expressive with that. Also, I do paint, but I doubt y'all want to see me paint a whole masterpiece or centerpiece or whatever. So, but just comment below and let me know what you would like to see more of, if you'd like to hear more story times. But again, LYLAS. Oh, and just in case y'all ever wonder what LYLAS stands for, what I put on all mine is love you like a sibling, or love you like a sister, or love you like a saint. You know, just know I love you. And we'll speak again next time. Bye. I know the sun is so bright, and yes, this pimple is getting on my nerves.